The January 10th, 2023 Committee on Ways and Means is now called to order. I will do a brief invocation from Reverend Lewis Williams Bishop. You must learn how to make it on the broken pieces, ripped from our land, stripped of our culture, religion, name, beaten for rebelling, and blamed for our state of existence. The descendants of Africans have a right to feel broken. Being broken does not mean you're unequipped. There are enough pieces left for us to grab onto, hold onto, and paddle our way to shore. Our life is the piece that equips us to have a goal. Our goal is the piece that will equip us with confidence. Our confidence is the piece that will give us persistence. Our persistence is the piece that will ensure our success. There are pieces from our parents, friends, and even foes. There are pieces of books, songs, and experience. More important, there are the pieces that well up from the deep inside of our being that will guide us surely and safely. Put them all together and hold on. My pieces may be broken, but I'm going on anyhow. Amen. Bids and purchases? Second. Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on bids and purposes? All in, yes.
There's a quick question. I mean,
Councilman Gregg.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. We spend $156,000 a year. Is this with our congressional delegation that we do the lobbying, or where is the lobbying effort spent mostly, I guess would be the question.
Across the board.
Pretty evenly between the congressional delegations, but maybe more than half with federal agencies.
Okay.
Like going to the Department of Transportation, going to the Department of Justice. Spent a lot of time this past year with Department of Transportation on a number of those initiatives that were in the report that Mike Tonger gave, but a lot with directly with federal agencies and sometimes with the White House as well.
Okay, thanks. I understand the need. It just seems like our congressional delegation would do this on our behalf, seeing as how we are their constituents, but I'll leave it at that. I know we need to spend the money.
Conceptually, I get that.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Parker and then Councilman
minutes.
Parker and then Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilmember Gregg, I am going to drop a little mention here. In 2 weeks, I'm going to sort of bring up this just for further discussion regarding some of our grant and lobbying statuses and who we have working for what. I'm with you, I agree, but we do, hire this lobbying firm, and I would like to see more from them. If we're paying this much, I would certainly like to hear more from them. So me and the mayor have had that discussion, but I just wanted to drop a little mention, and hopefully we can all have kind of a further discussion in 2 weeks regarding our grant writers in the city, our lobbying positions, because I certainly think the 12 of us sitting around this room, like you said, we need to lean on our folks up in Columbia to get done what we need here in the city. So thank you.
Looking forward to the discussion. Councilman Mitchell.
I just said maybe to go back to the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. December 20th minutes. The December 6th minutes are deferred.
Approval.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay. And we've been through bids and purchases already.
And we need to vote.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Mayor? Sure.
Add one more comment, Councilmember Gregg and my colleagues, that it's not always about securing funds. Sometimes it's policy matters as well. For example, in the bill that just passed last week, when President Biden signed the Omnibus Act, in the Worder bill also was included something called the Shore Act that enables the Corps of Engineers to be a little more open-minded about flood risk when they do projects like the one we've been working with them all on, to consider things like rainfall and tidal action as opposed to just surge protection. So that was a policy thing. And yeah, I get it that the congressional offices, they are our advocates, but a lot of times when you have something like specialized like that's really down in the weeds, we're educating our congressional staff to an extent, making them aware of what's out there and what's coming and how important it would be to our city. So yeah, we're up there lobbying for money, but sometimes we're lobbying for policy that really makes a difference to us.
And how long have we been doing this, Mayor? For quite some time, haven't we?
Way before
Since
I became mayor.
Same
In
here.
fact, it's the same firm that we were using when I got elected. And I really think they've upped their game in the last couple of years. And are doing a pretty remarkable job. We
Yeah,
had a
because-
good year last year.
Because I can recall, Mayor, on the Community Development Block Grant Program in particular, that it took more than our mayor going up and testifying on behalf of the city. It also took an extensive amount of lobbying to make sure that the kind of provisions that would benefit the city in particular would be there. I'm definitely a strong advocate for
Yeah. So, and relevant to Councilmember Parker's recommendation, I think she mentioned, I would think that most of y'all benefited from seeing that report from Mike Tongor and what he'd been doing for the last year. I think it's certainly transparent and a good idea to have a more regular report from them and from our folks in Columbia, along with our grant writer, Sarah. She is taking a leave of absence starting Friday for maternity leave. But to share with council all the things we're working on and see if y'all have any other suggestions for grants or policies that we need to pursue at either the state or federal level.
Any more comments? Item 4, and there are some amendments to item 4, and you'll see them on your desk, and I'll ask legal to explain it to us.
Good afternoon. Included in your materials are proposed amendments to item 4, which is the adoption of a fee schedule for the rental registration program in the Cannonboro Elliott pilot program. That is to adopt a $40 application fee per registration per rental unit, and an additional $10 for every additional unit on the same TMS number, for a maximum of $100 per TMS number. The requested amendment is to strike the references to the requirement for a business license for 2 or more residential rental units. And the reason for that is citywide, it's 5 or more. The rental registry has it at 2 or more. And when this item came before License Committee yesterday to make it 2 or more citywide, that caused some concern. So our recommendation is that whatever we do, we're consistent. So if that item fails, then we recommend making the pilot program consistent with the remainder of the city so that it's 5+. And that's what those red lines in your materials are.
Because it was deferred in licensing, right?
Yes, it was deferred yesterday.
Any questions? Yes, council member.
Yes, so
Can you repeat the fees, please?
the fee is $40 for registering single residential rental unit. It's an additional $10 per rental unit that's on the same property. So if you have a duplex The second unit would be $10 for a maximum of $100 per TMS number
Annually.
annually. Yes. Yeah, same for renewals.
Yes, Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everyone, you know, I've spoken about this rental registry program, and I understand that it's a sort of a pilot program, but I do, you know, in our budget, there was money allotted to hire someone to coordinate this livability program, this rental ordinance or the rental registry. So again, I just want to be sure. I think it's coming to a district near you. I think that was the intention from, intent from the beginning. Just wanted to make sure everyone keeps thinking about that. Thank you.
Councilman Seeking.
Just
and then
a
Councilman
procedural
Shea.
matter, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we take numbers 4 and 5 together so we can hear from the licensing committee about their reasoning for doing what they did in deferral before we vote on this matter, which was not, I think, what the license committee was working on. So can we take 4 and 5 together so we can put all this? It's my motion.
Sure. Councilman Mitchell.
Can I get a second on that motion so we can take 4 and 5 together?
Just so,
All in favor?
Okay, under license committee meeting on item 4, dealing with the ordinance to amend Appendix B business license class schedule. The committee decided to defer it because we've had some discussion pertaining to it and a lot of discussion pertaining to long-term citywide with the business license adding more money to it. Some of the committee members felt that people didn't understand it, for one thing, and people wasn't sure that something that was going to work for them. So we decided to defer it, and council member Kevin Shealy had some problem with it, and Councilmember Keith Waring had some problem with it, with the West Ashley, because this was going to be citywide if we did with the business license. And that would add more money that they would have to pay to, according to whatever the case may be on that business license part of it. So instead of doing that, we deferred that portion of it, but let the other portion stay insofar as the registry that we have the pilot program in Ellie Cannon Bar, along with what we have in the city. So that's what happened in the business license committee meeting. We deferred that portion of it. That's why it's scratched out. And that's why our attorneys mentioned what happened pertaining to that portion of it.
Yes, Councilman Shea.
This goes back more to, I think, item number 4 than item number 5, but how do we come up with these rate schedules that's listed in here?
Well, so when at council, we had in a meeting prior to this one time, we directed the attorneys to go back and take a look at it and come back with something back to us pertaining to all that citywide with the permits and business license. And so this is what they came back with, because we instructed them to go back and come back with that item.
But more specifically, when it comes to the fee schedule that's listed under item 4, is that something that we just popped out of the thin air, or is that something based on other?
My understanding is that Livability worked on this with BFRC, and that the minimum application fee that the city has for anything is $40. And so we went with the minimum number.
And then the $10 per additional unit,
Yes.
Right.
it seems kind of low. And that's on an annual basis.
Correct. Yes.
Well, sometimes you look at it, it seems kind of low for some, but not a low for everyone. So this is why we look at it and we just deferred it. But length of time actually, and this go along with what we have in place so far as the registry. And we are going along with that since that was approved, and the real estate and everyone else agree with it. So this is why we're just going with the registry and just leaving that part so far as the business license part of it alone.
So this is sort of maybe I'm missing this all together, but I pay a business license fee for the city of Charleston based upon my revenue. It's a sliding scale.
That's the difference.
This is
License, this is the difference between the business
I-
license and the permit.
exactly,
Okay.
that's my next point. So I'm paying a flat fee regardless of what the income is off of this enterprise. Right? I mean, it seems like, you know, when you buy I can't remember when this was, but when you bought a used car in South Carolina, if you bought a $20,000 used car, you pay $300 fee. If you bought a $5,000 used car, you paid a $300 fee. It seemed out of whack that you had a flat fee regardless of the value of the car and regardless of the value of the income that you're deriving out of this enterprise, you're still paying just a flat fee. Why not tie it into some kind of sliding scale? Am I missing something with this?
Councilman Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we go back to what we voted on when this all came about, the idea was that livability was having a hard time tracking down problem tenants, basically. And we couldn't figure out who the owner was because it was in an LLC and we couldn't tie in who's actually responsible for this. So, I mean, the whole idea was to have this registry so that we can have someone to get in touch with, I don't believe the idea was to raise revenue off of it. I think it was more to find out who the responsible person is that owns that property where there's an issue or where there's a problem. And I think we're still doing that in what we have. The issue with the business license was, first of all, this was a pilot with two subdivisions or two boroughs, I guess, that we were doing this in. The business license, because it is a tax, it had to be spread throughout the entire city. That's where I had an issue because I know that there's a lot of people all in the city, particularly in West Ashley. Because of the business I'm in, I know that there are a lot of people with two landlord policies in a home. A lot of them are people that grew up in a home, kept that one when they bought the other one, decided to rent it out. In a lot of cases, there's a child renting that house out for them. So I just felt like it wasn't fair for us to make that situation have to have a business license. And that was my main issue with this. They're not running a business. There's a lot of people out there, I think, that have a couple of properties that they own, and they're not really making a huge income off of this. And yet we're going to say, hey, we're going to tax you more. And you don't have anything, these people don't have anything to do with the livability. These are people that are responsible people that are living where their properties are. And yet we're going to tax them in order to have this other person make sure that we can track them down if they have a problem tenant. So I just had a problem with that. And that's kind of where we went with the license committee deferral. Thank you.
Councilman Saffron.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo Councilman Shealy's concerns regarding this. Two questions I guess I would have is, are we still trying to determine whether it's going to be for 2 units or 5 units? I guess that's my initial question. I'd be favorable to keep it at 5 units because I do agree.
Deferred, right? It was deferred. It wasn't voted on.
And the second question is, if there is a fee assessed, are we assessing it this year? And is that going to double tax someone that's already an exit? I guess what I'm asking is the potential for someone to pay the fee twice is being part of the pilot, and if they're already paying the fee initially.
So the fee schedule is the application fee to register your unit. You're required to register. It's $40 to register 1 unit. That's what's before you. And because of the deferral of the item yesterday, to have it be 2 or more that require a business license citywide, what we've recommended is, since you have the amendment to the rental registry ordinance before you now, that we amend it further to keep the provisions regarding business license consistent with the rest of the city so that it's 5 or more as well.
Mayor.
So if I may summarize the way I understand this, if you have 5 or more rental units in the city of Charleston, you have to have a business license. At some point, and this was again before I became mayor, the city council determined that that was a number above which you're kind of in the business of rental properties, you know, rather than an incidental situation like Councilmember Shealy mentioned. So in that case, Councilmember Shade, there is a graduated business license fee based on the amount of income you get off of those 5 or more properties, right? And so what we have before us in number 4 allows the pilot registration program to go forward in Canberra, Elliott Borough, defining what that fee will be for that registration, but staying where we are at 5 properties to get a business license. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think.
Yes, that's
where
correct, Mayor.
Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Any further
Do we need a
discussion?
motion?
I think there was a motion on the floor.
And seconded?
So there is a motion to, Mr. Chairman, there is a motion to take them together, but the one under the license committee was deferred.
So as to number 4, I move for approval.
I'll second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on further discussion on item 4? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The
Nay.
ayes have it.
Nay.
Item 5, I think you've sort of already given your report.
Move approval for the
Do I hear
item
a
4
second?
for the business license, the report that I gave.
Right, which included the
The
deferral.
Correct.
referral of the item.
Right.
that we
Do I
had.
hear a second?
There's only one item.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 6, I will call on Chairman Ross Appel.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Real Estate met for the first time in 2023, yesterday afternoon at 3:30. And we had a pretty full agenda, and if everyone will bear with me, I'll go ahead and run through everything that we did. First up was an authorization for the mayor to execute some covenants with respect to Fort Pemberton over in my district in Riverland Terrace. We're receiving a federal grant from the National Park Service. And in exchange for that money, the federal government wants to know that we're not going to use the property for anything other than a park. So we unanimously agreed to authorize the mayor to enter into covenants to that effect. The next item concerned the city quit claiming certain property over in West Ashley in Maryville to an entity, Bubsy LLC. I want to make sure the record reflects Councilman Waring recused himself. That's the word I was looking for, and didn't take part in that discussion. And we voted unanimously to approve that. The city's legal department hired somebody to do a very exhaustive title exam. The conclusion was that the city really didn't have a legitimate claim to this property, and it would be very expensive and difficult for us to assert any claim. That's why the city authorized this quitclaim deed without any sort of remuneration from the entity. Next up was approval of utility easement in favor of Dominion, and this is for certain electrical infrastructure improvements at the Charleston Marina, some of which consists of undergrounding some power infrastructure over in that part of town. So that's great. Staying on the waterfront, we then approved MOU with SMH Charleston City Marina LLC, the city's tenant at the city marina, so that they can appeal their tax assessment for 2022, which is quite enormous in terms of the jump from prior years. And I think the committee felt that part of being a good landlord is allowing your tenant to have the tools at their disposal to avail themselves of their legal right to appeal their property tax assessment to our friends at the county. And that was approved unanimously as well. Next up, we had consideration of an agreement to purchase real estate over off of Ashley River Road. I believe this is over in Councilman Shealy's district. This is property for a new fire station. And that was approved unanimously as well, with some very good discussion about infrastructure and intersections and things of that nature, as the time may come to work those issues out. Next up, we approved a right-of-way and utility easement with the College of Charleston over at their property over by Brittle Bank Park over at 99 West Edge. This is essentially to allow some sewer infrastructure to be extended to connect to alleviate some on-site challenges they have. And our legal department was very savvy in inserting some language that would enable the city to have the right to relocate this easement in the event the property is redeveloped, the police station that is. And so that was unanimously approved as well. And then we had 3 annexations up for consideration, one over in Edgewater in my district, nice waterfront piece of property that was unanimously approved. Then we had some property over in Councilman Waring's district off of Raoul Wallenberg Boulevard that was approved. And then finally some park property over in Johns Island, which needs to become part of the city of Charleston. Those 3 annexations were unanimously approved. And then finally, we approved a deed of modification and release over a very complicated technical legal issue involved in 334 Calhoun Street. If anyone's interested in the innards of this, I encourage anyone to check out the YouTube video. There's probably way too much to get into here, but just suffice to say, in coordination with Charleston County, the owner of the property, we were asked to take certain corrective action with respect to a real estate transaction that took place decades ago. And just to confirm that this property, I believe, could be used only for medical purposes since it's in an overlay. And that was approved unanimously. And then finally, we ended with an executive session to discuss a proposed real estate sale, and no action was taken. And that concludes my report, and I move that it be adopted.
Moved and properly second discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to recuse myself for 6B, please.
Okay.
I turn it in. Jim.
This may have little relevance, but I just want the record to reflect it. Dominion Energy, they're devaluing property in our neighborhoods by butchering trees. The streetscapes are horrible. It's terrible, and hopefully they'll grow back. But it's horrible the way our streets and our trees are being butchered. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick question about 8 in the real estate committee report, and that is, what is the status of 334 Calhoun Street? Does the county have a contract on that property or not?
We're told they do, but I
Said
think
it's
Ms.
owned by
Copeland
them.
has up-to-date information.
I think it's currently under contract and under due diligence.
Do we know who they're selling it to?
Private developer, I don't know the name,
Okay.
but I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Councilman Parker.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, what committee would we bring that, address that issue with Dominion with the trees? I have the same problem in my district.
I'm not sure. Public Works,
okay.
but I mean,
There's not much
They
we
ha-
can do.
they have the right to try to make sure that our lights are not turned off
Right.
when there's a hurricane, but it is definitely awful
Okay. All
to
right.
live with. We can solve it by going underground, but it's gonna be pretty expensive. Yes, yes, but I just wanted that to be a part of the record.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Madam Clerk, I just want the record to reflect that I abstained from voting on 6B.
Yes, sir. I have your abstention as well as Councilmember
Thank you
Shealy's.
very much.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can agree to what you said so far, Dominion, because they really butchered my tree up.
It's
On King Street.
unbelievable.
I mean, they did a job on it when they first came and cut it, and they came on the property, even cut it all up in there. I mean, it looked a sight. So, and nothing to do about it.
We
When I
need-
came home, they were already in there cutting. And I came in, I said, I thought you cut in from the wire. But it was in the yard. Up in the tree cutting, I mean, they cut it up, they bitched it up. It's the big cedar tree I had in the front yard. They bitched that tree up. I mean, it looked a sight. And I told Jason about it. And he looked at it and he said, yes, they sure did. But
Well,
nothing they can do about it. It's not gonna grow back.
we don't need a butcher, we need arborists. All in favor, say aye. Did we vote on it? The ayes have it. Is there anything else to come before this committee? If not, you guys have a joyful new year. This meeting's adjourned.
It's the pleasure of council. We'll keep right on rolling. It's 5:03. Okay.